Another herb which is a great antiviral is olive leaf. Olive leaf, you can use the leaf, you can use part of the tree, you can use the fruit. The effects is antiviral, antioxidant, antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal, and antiparasitic. No, even though it's a great antiviral, antibacterial, it's a super good antiviral. Its uses are arteriosclerosis, arthritis, bladder infections, candidiasis, chickenpox, cholera, chronic fatigue syndrome, the common cold viruses, diphtheria, E. coli, enhances elasticity of the arteries, and which is very, very important as we look at blood pressure, enhances the energy production in our body, which is also very important. It's good for Epstein-Barr virus, eczema, fever, flagellants, gastrointestinal ulcers, gonorrhea, gout, group B strep, H. pylori, hepatitis A, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Herpes viruses, HIV and AIDS, hypertension. It improves blood flow, and anytime we improve that blood flow, that's a good thing. Intestinal worms, kidney stones, Lyme disease, ringworm, and shingles. Shingles is probably what I use the olive leaf most for. I'll use either in a capsule, I'll use olive leaf extract, 800 milligrams 3 times a day, or you can use an extract, or you can use the tea, but I'll take a definitive numbers, the 800 milligrams of the olive leaf extract in a tablet. I'll use that 3 times a day, and then on the shingle area, I'll put the castor oil pack. And watch our series on poultices, and you'll find out how to do that castor oil pack. It will dry that right up. And then what exacerbates shingles probably one of the most is stress. So we'll do 100 milligrams of B complex with each meal. Those 3 things right there, super powerful for taking down shingles. And I learned that from a good friend of mine, Dr. Agatha Thrash. Precautions: olive leaf is likely safe when taken appropriately by mouth or applied to the skin. Again, another way of saying olive leaf is safe. Podiarco. Podiarco is right up there with my favorites. Use the inner bark of the tree. It's an antibiotic, anti-cancer. I use Podiarco the most for cancer. If a person comes and they want to know what to do for cancer, we do a number of things. It's not just Podiarco, but Podiarco is probably the first herb that I start using. It's not a strong herb from a taste standpoint, but a very powerful one. It's something that we can start off with, and they're less prone to say they don't like it. Podiarco actually will go in there and just, it's like a, it just goes there and eats the cancer. It's antifungal, anti-inflammatory, antiparasitic, antiviral. There it is, anti-tumor, goes after that cancer tumor. It's cleansing, immune stimulating. It's a tonic. Anemia, it has anti-tumor activity. Asthma, it's a blood builder, and that's very important, and a blood purifier. Anytime you're addressing cancer, you've got to purify that blood. Not only is Podiarco a blood purifier, it's also that it goes in there and takes out that cancer, takes out that tumor. It's good for boils. It's a body detox, bronchitis, candida. It's good for the common cold, diabetes, dysentery. It's good for fever. It fights cancer, fights candida, flu, gastritis, gonorrhea, H1N1 swine flu, heals ulcers, herpes simplex, increases the number of red corpuscles. That's a good thing. It's good for infections. Inflammation of the prostate gland. That's the other area that I use the Podiarco a lot for, is when men come in and they tell me they're having problems with prostate. Yes, we use saw palmetto, we use pumpkin seeds, zinc, pygium, but Podiarco is also very, very good for the prostate. If a man has some challenges of getting up at night, it's good for that, for slowing that down. If there's some challenges of leakage, it's good for that, or not having good flow, it's good for that. Joint pain, liver ailments, neutralizes poisons in the body. It's a good pain reliever, reduces and dissolves tumors, reduces inflammation, and that's also good when we're dealing with cancer here. Reduces age spots, ladies like that. It's good for age spots. Ringworm. Strengthens the immune system. Again, something very important when you have cancer. So when I look for a tea for cancer, I'm looking for something that's going to purify the blood, something that's a cancer killer, and something that builds the immune system. And Podiarco does all three, and that's why I like using Podiarco right up front, hitting it strong with the Podiarco. Syphilis, ulcers, and wounds. Precautions: one should stop using Podiarco at least 2 weeks before scheduled surgery. Another thing on using herbs for cancer, it's good to change those herbs. Some of the top herbalists will tell you, change that herb every week. Hit it with Podiarco this week, red clover next week. You're using Asiac. We may use Asiac throughout the term, but we're constantly changing that. Maybe the third week we're going to poke root. We're just changing that tea every week to keep hitting that cancer strong with something new. Our next one's peppermint. Now we've got peppermint tea right here, where we made some peppermint tea. Peppermint is another very good herb. You can use the dried leaves, flowering branch tips, the fresh flowering plant. You can use the whole plant. It's something you can grow in most yards. Put it out there, peppermint and spearmint and stevia, and grow all those around the house. It's an analgesic, it's antibacterial, antiemetic, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antispasmodic. It's a calmative. It has a cooling effect. It's a diaphoretic, insecticidal. In the essential oils, I sell the most essential oils for peppermint for people who are wanting to get rid of mice, they're wanting to get rid of rats in the barn, or they're wanting to get rid of squirrels in their attic, or they're wanting to get rid of spiders. And peppermint is very good for all of those. Just put it on a piece of cotton ball and toss it in the closet. Toss it in a corner underneath a piece of furniture. Toss it in a drawer. Those mice just don't want to be around peppermint. Go up in the attic, toss them down the attic, and the squirrels don't want to come in and be around that peppermint smell. It's a nervine, spasmolytic, aids digestion. It's good for boils, bronchitis, colds. It's also good for colic, colon problems. In my colon formula that I use for addressing colon issues, I put peppermint in there because it's so good for healing the colon. Constipation, convulsions, cough, Crohn's disease, depression, diarrhea. It's a digestive aid, diverticulitis, flagellants, gastric stimulant. It's good for headaches, heart palpitations, heartburn. It settles down digestion if you're having digestion issues. Herpes simplex, if a person's having hysteria, it helps to calm them down. Increases the oxygen supply in the blood. Now that's very important. We want a good O2 sat. We want a good oxygen saturation. If you have a person with a low O2 sat, you can give them the peppermint and it will help that oxygen saturation. Increases that oxygen supply in the blood. Insomnia, irritable bowel syndrome, measles, morning sickness. Again, it's going to help with that nauseousness, and that's why we have nauseousness there. Neuralgia, Newcastle's disease, respiratory infections, shingles. It stimulates stomach digestive fluids. There's no health hazards or side effects known in conjunction with the proper administration designated therapeutic doses. So it's another one that's safe for us to use. Plantain. We use the whole plant. Now this is different. It's not the fruit plantain. This is plantain. It's anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, antispasmodic. It's an astringent, a demulcent, a diuretic, and also an expectorant. It draws splinters. If you make a poultice and put it over an area, it's good for drawing things out of the body. So if you get a splinter, put that and it'll pull that splinter right on out. Absorbs toxins from the bowels. It's good for asthma, bladder infections. It's a blood purifier. Very important. Blood poisoning. It's good for boils, bronchitis, for bruises. If a person has a bruise, you can put that over the bruise and that will help with the bruise. Burns. Use it on burns. Chronic skin problems, colds, colitis, coughs, cuts, dysentery, excess body fluids, hemorrhoids. Again, you can take that plantain, make you a fomentation, apply that to the hemorrhoid. It's good to heal that hemorrhoid. Hepatitis, incontinence. It lowers cholesterol. Poison ivy reduces appetite. Promotes normal bowel function. Similar effects to psyllium seed husk. It actually looks very similar. So if you're out of psyllium seed husk, you can use plantain seeds and they work very similar. Skin disorders, skin infections, snake bites. Don't just do the plantain. You want to do some other things also, but plantain is very, very good to put on a snake bite. Soothes inflamed tissues. It stops bleeding. It's used for toothaches and urinary problems, venereal disease, used for wheezing, worms, and also for wounds. Plantain seems to be safe when taken by mouth by most adults. Again, just a general statement saying it's safe. Poke. Poke is another favorite. My garden, if I'm not careful, would be full of poke. All around my home, I have poke. And I like having it because it's a medicine that I have available if we need it. You can use the dried root or you can use the berries. But if you use the berries, you have to be very, very cautious. Children cannot use berries. Adult can only just use a few. It'll clean you right out. The dried root is what we mostly use. Also the leaf, you've heard of poke salad. You can also do poke salad. If you do poke salad, if you do the root, the berries, all three are poisonous if you don't use them right. So when you use poke, make sure you have some education before you use it because it is poisonous. And I'll share with you in a minute how to do that. It's an antibiotic. It's good for cancer. That's why we use poke for cancer. It's anti-inflammatory, anti-rheumatic, anti-parasitic. It's anti-tumor, antiviral, immune stimulating. So it's going to build that immune system. So again, another reason we want to use it for that cancer. Emetic, it's good for acne. It's a blood cleanser. There you go. Do you keep seeing that? Cancer cleans the blood. Cancer cleans the blood. There's something serious about that. Boils, breast tumors, bursitis. It's used for cancer. Dissolves tumors, fungal infections. It's good for goiters, hemorrhoids, inflammation, laryngitis, lymphatic purifier, mumps, parasites, psoriasis, relieves difficult urination, respiratory problems, rheumatism, scabies, skin ulcers, tonsillitis, again tumors, venereal disease, and wounds. Poke grows very, very well in the South. It's just a great tool which we have to deal with a lot of different health issues. Precautions: all parts of the plant are poisonous. The toxicity is reduced through cooking. And here's what we do. Let's say we have a root, and we'll talk a little bit more about this again as we get into the series. But let's say I have a root and it's about this size. I'm going to boil that root with a quart of water for 20 minutes. Then I'm going to throw that water away. I'm going to put another quart of water in that pan, boil it for another 20 minutes, throw that water away, and then I'm going to boil it again a third time for 20 minutes, and that tea I can drink. That's for fresh poke. The leaves, you've got to take care of the leaves also. The berries, be very cautious. Again, you do not want children using berries. If as an adult, take a look and see how much you feel comfortable taking of the berries. I won't even give a number. You want to go take a look at that if you're going to use those berries. Be careful. But poke is very, very powerful for fighting cancer, and that's mostly what I use it for. Another favorite, red clover. Use the dried, fresh flower heads. It's antibiotic, antispasmodic. It's another anti-tumoral. It's a cardioprotective. It's a chemoprotective. It's a diuretic, expectorant. It's a sedative. It's good for acne. It's an appetite suppressant, arthritis, atherosclerosis. It's good for athlete's foot, bladder problems. It's a blood cleanser. Again, red clover is good for cancer, and we've got a blood cleanser again, blood purifier. Boils, bronchitis, calms nervous exhaustion. It's good for cancer, constipation, coughs, eczema, gout. It's good for hot flashes. Red clover is a phytoestrogen. Improves cardiovascular health, inflamed lungs, kidney problems, leukemia, liver congestion, lymphatic congestion, maintains bone strength. It's good for menopausal symptoms, muscle cramps, prevents coronary heart disease. It's good for nervous conditions, psoriasis, respiratory conditions, scarlet fever. Strengthens the ovaries, syphilis, tuberculosis, tumors, wheezing, whooping cough, and wounds. And red clover just grows out in the cow pasture or grows out in the field. You can go out there and pick those little red flowers and let them dry inside, and there's your medicine for all winter long until next season when you can go pick fresh red clover. You can also take red clover and pick it, and you can eat it in your salad. Now, you don't want to eat a lot of the green underneath. That green part underneath can make you sick if you eat a lot of that. So when I eat the red clover just raw, I'll pick the flower off and leave the green. Red clover is another herb that would not be a problem, and it's actually advised that we drink that tea every day. Red clover purifies the blood, it builds the immune system, and it fights cancer, amongst a lot of other things. Precautions: red clover appears to be neutral, safe, and even beneficial for most. Red raspberry. Red raspberry is known as a pregnancy tea, and you'll see why. Red raspberry, its effects: it's an astringent, an emmenagogue, and a febrifuge. It's good for afterbirth pains. It arrests the hemorrhaging during childbirth, bleeding gums. It's good for breastfeeding discomfort, bronchitis, prevents tearing of the cervix of the uterus during birth. You see how it's a birthing during pregnancy tea. It's good for canker sores, cholera. Cleans and prepares the breast for a pure supply of milk. It's good for colic, constipation, cystitis. It's good for diarrhea, dissolves tartar on the teeth. We've had several that do that. Dysentery, enriches early colostrum. So that's important. That baby needs that colostrum. enriches early colostrum. It's good for the flu. High in iron, it lessens the pain of childbirth. It's good for measles, morning sickness, menstrual irregularities, mouth sores, nervous conditions. It also prevents miscarriage. It's good for the prostate gland for men. Reduces false labor pains, soothes the stomach. It's a sore throat gargle, strengthens contractions. Twice as much manganese than any other herb. Twice as much manganese than any other herb out there. It also strengthens and tones the uterus. Precaution, no health hazards or side effects known. So if you know somebody that's looking to get pregnant, once they do get pregnant, it's a great tea to use throughout that pregnancy. Saw palmetto. This is kind of a men's herb, but yes, sometimes ladies will use it also. Use the berry or the fruit. Its effects: anti-androgenic, anti-estrogenic, anti-inflammatory, and anytime we can go anti-inflammatory, it's good. We want to keep that inflammation down. That's one of the problems that we have with an inflamed prostate is inflammation. Antiseptic, it's a diuretic, it's an endocrine agent, it's a nutritive. It's good for alcoholism, asthma, Bright's disease, bronchitis, chronic cystitis, chronic pelvic pain syndrome. It's a digestive aid. It's a hormone regulator or hormone regulation, immune system booster. It's good for impotence, improvement of libido, increases sperm production. It's good for infertility. It's good for inflammation of the urinary tract, inhibits the growth of prostate cancer cells, and that's why we use it for prostate so much. Inhibits the growth of prostate cancer cells. It's good for lung congestion. It's good for male hair loss, migraine headaches, mucus discharge, neuralgia. It's one of the best sources to increase male testosterone naturally. Now again, why do men have low testosterone? Well, it can be because they're not sleeping. It can be because you're using alcohol. It can be because they're obese. It can be because they're eating wheat. They've got visceral fat. Visceral fat increases estradiol. Elevated estradiol lowers testosterone. So there's another number of reasons. We got to get to that root cause, but this helps us also. It's good for persistent coughs, potential increase in male hair density. It's good for prostate enlargement. It also quiets the nerves. It reduces the risk of prostate cancer, regulates testosterone levels. It's a sexual stimulant, strengthens the urinary organs. If you have trouble urinating and leaking urine and urinary tract infections. It's recommended that men 45 years of age start taking saw palmetto on a daily basis, just to increase that testosterone because we start losing testosterone, but also to make sure we're keeping that prostate health good and healthy. Precautions. Taking saw palmetto along with birth control pills might decrease the effectiveness of birth control pills. Now, most of what we've just been talking about was male issues, but women also take saw palmetto. So if a woman is taking birth control pills and saw palmetto, be careful, your birth control pills may not work. Skullcap. Skullcap is a favorite of mine when dealing with depression. It's very, very good for depression. Use the whole plant. It's antibacterial. Also, it's anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antispasmodic, anti-tumor, antiviral. It's an astringent. It's a cardioprotective, febrifuge, nervine, tonic, absorbs toxins from the bowel. It's good for allergies. It's an antidote for rabies, mad dog. It's good for anxiety, atherosclerosis, bronchitis, chronic fatigue syndrome. Could prevent myocardial infarction. Did you hear that one? using skullcap can prevent an MI, a myocardial infarction. It's good for diarrhea, digestive problems, encourages menstruation. It's good for epilepsy and fever, gout. If a person has a headache, skullcap is a possibility. Helps rebuild nerve endings in the brain. Helps with infertility, hepatitis. It's good for lowering cholesterol. It's good for a person who's having hysteria. You can make some skullcap to calm them down, just like we did with the peppermint. Increases the flow of urine. It's good for infertility, inflammation. It's good for insomnia, really good for insomnia. It helps keep the throat clear and healthy. It's good for mental illness, nervous tension, also palsy. Paralysis caused by stroke, promotes menstruation, promotes bile flow. It's a sedative for relaxation. Skin infections, it's also good for snake bites. It soothes inflamed tissue. It's good for spasms and also for tetanus. Stimulates the blood flow to the pelvic region. It suppresses the growth of lymphoma and myeloma cells. Let's read that one more time. Suppresses the growth of lymphoma and myeloma cells. It's good for respiratory infections or upper respiratory infections. Precautions, if taken according to the manufacturer's directions, skullcap does not seem to exhibit any adverse effects. Drugs.com. The manufacturers, I think that comes from God. Shepherd's purse. Use the whole plant. I think of the lady with an issue of blood when I use shepherd's purse. It's antibacterial, astringent, it's a diuretic, it's a hemostatic, and it also is a vasoconstrictor. It's good for afterbirth bleeding control. It aids in constriction of blood vessels. It's good for arteriosclerosis, bedwetting, bladder infections, bladder inflammation, bleeding hemorrhoids, bleeding skin injuries. Do you see it where it helps with bleeding disorders? Blood pressure, it both raises and normalizes blood pressure. It helps in bloody urine. Burns, you can use it on burns, constipation. Controls difficult urination, cystitis, diarrhea, dysentery, excessive menstruation, headaches, internal bleeding of the colon. Let's go back to that excessive menstruation. I got a call one morning and I was at church, and a lady I know, she's actually on the fire department with us, and she said, "Walt, I feel like the lady with an issue of blood." And she said, "I have no energy. It's been a month and I need help." And I said, "Well, she called during church, so I called her right after church, and I said, I'll meet you at work in about, shortly." So I went over there and she was just plumb wore out. So I gave her some shepherd's purse and told her how to make the tea. And she called me the next morning and she said, "Walt," she said, "the bleeding has stopped." And it works very, very well for that excessive bleeding in menstruation. Internal bleeding of the lungs, again, a bleeding issue. Long periods, as we just talked about, mild heart failure, uterine and mucous membrane bleeding, vomiting blood, and water retention. Precautions, no health hazards or side effects are known in conjunction with the proper administration, but should not be used during pregnancy also. So they don't find any problems, but if a person's pregnant, they should not be using shepherd's purse. At the end of it, during childbirth, the midwife may use that. Okay, slippery elm, another great, great herb. It's the dry inner bark. I was talking with a Native American of the Cherokee tribe, and they told me that years ago when they would travel from village to village And if they did not have any food with them, they would just stop by an elm tree, bark off some inner bark of the elm, and eat it. And they said that would give them good food or good nutrition. So we've learned today that you can eat the dandelion leaf and be able to get good nutrition from the dandelion leaf, but you can also use the dried inner bark of the slippery elm. Another one I believe out there, if you're in the South or over in Asia, you can use the kudzu, whether it's the leaf or the stem, or you can boil the root like a potato. The effects, it's an astringent, a demulcent, emullant, anti-neoplastic, demulcent, it's a laxative, and a nutritive. It's used to absorb foul gases, burns, diaper rash. It's great for diaper rash, diverticulitis, duodenal ulcers, dysentery, gangrenous wounds, or that's gangrene that's in a wound, gastritis, gout, hay fever, hemorrhoids, herpes, hoarseness, inflamed lungs, irritated kidneys, neutralizes stomach acid, rheumatism, protects against irritation and inflammation of the mucous membranes, soothes to inflamed or irritated areas. It's good for sore throats. A couple weeks ago, the neighbor who works next to us at work came over and she said, "Walt, do you have anything for a sore throat?" She says, "It's killing me." So I went over and I got some slippery elm, and I just took a teaspoon and got a glass of water, stirred it up, and I said, "Go sip on this." She came back over the next day and she says, "You won't believe it." I just smiled. She says, "It took care of that sore throat." I said, "It sure does." I said, "That's how this stuff works that God gave us." Swollen glands, syphilis, tonsillitis, tuberculosis. When one cannot hold or digest food, slippery elm may be used as food. Just as that Cherokee told me, it's nutritious, can be used as food. Science has now found that it's good for food if one cannot hold food down. It's good for wound healing. Some people will put it in wound formulas. Precautions, no health hazards or side effects are known. Stinging nettle. This is another favorite of mine. Do you think I have one or two favorites? I tell you, God has given us so many good herbs. It was so difficult for me to just choose these right here because I had so many that I put back that are so good for us to use. Okay, stinging nettle. The fresh or dried flowering plant. Also, you can use the roots. The effects, it's analgesic, antifungal, it's an antihistamine. That's why we use it for problems with asthma or with problems with allergies. It's very, very good for allergies because of the antihistamine properties in it. And anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antiseptic, antimicrobial. It's good for ulcers. It's an anti-ulcer, astringent, diuretic, expectorant, nutritive. What are the uses? It's good for allergies, anemia, arthritis, asthma, benign prostate hyperplasia, BPH, blood purification. So it's good to purify that blood. Now notice what's the next one down? Bowel bleeding, and then what? Cancer. Do you see what I keep seeing there? What's good for cancer also purifies the blood. Dandruff. Decreases menstrual flow. Diarrhea. Diuretic. Dysentery. Edema. Enlarged spleen. Frequent urination. Gout. Natural hair color. I have people who come in and they will get nettle from me. And they will tell me after about 6 months of using it, their hair starts turning back its natural color. Also, I have men telling me their hair's starting to grow back. Hay fever, head wounds, hormone stabilization. We use nettle. We use three main things when women come in and they have problems of of hormones. We want that hormone stabilization. And we'll use wild yam cream to stabilize the progesterone. Then when we stabilize the progesterone, it stabilizes the estrogen. We use nettle tea. The nettle tea both provides the nutrients for the body to produce the hormones that the female needs, but also it is hormone stabilizing. So that also helps with it. And then we'll use the flaxseed, 3 tablespoons twice a day, grind, eat within 15 minutes. The flaxseed, and that's a phytoestrogen, which also helps. If that's not enough, then we'll go over to Vitex and we'll add some extra Vitex. There's already Vitex in the wild yam cream, but we ramp up the Vitex, which is another herb, and that also helps. And usually those 4 right there will do it. Normally the 3 does it, but if not, we'll go with the 4th. If it's a real difficult situation, we'll have them juice, and we'll juice vegetable juice for a whole month. And that's amazing of resetting female hormones. Inability to urinate increases the flow of urine, inflammation, internal bleeding, irritable bladder, joint pain, kidney and bladder stones. Leaves are eaten as a cooked vegetable. So you can take the nettle leaf and you can cook it like you would spinach. Lung congestion, muscle aches and pains, nosebleeds, oily hair, osteoarthritis, and we use it a lot for arthritis, painful urination, poor circulation, prevents the signs of aging, promotes lactation. Well, it's stabilizing hormones, it's providing nutrients, so we're going to see better lactation. Relief from water retention. It's good for rash. Reduces bleeding after dental surgery. Reduces bleeding connected to gingivitis. Reduces bleeding during surgeries. It's a rich source of minerals, and as I mentioned, it's probably the most nutritious of all the herbs, is what we're finding, the most rich in minerals. It shrinks inflamed tissue, slows or stops the spread of prostate cancer cells. Did you hear that one? Slows or stops the spread of prostate cancer cells. Stimulates hair growth. I was talking about where men's hair starts growing back. Treats disorders of the kidneys and urinary tract. Treats tendinitis. It's also good for urinary tract infections. Also urinary tract inflammation. So it's good for infections and inflammation. Uterine bleeding and also wound healing. Precautions: touching the stinging nettle plant can cause skin irritation. It can light you up. So wear gloves when you're taking it. Once you cook it, it's going to be gone, or once you dry it, then it's going to be fine. St. John's wort. The aerial parts, it's analgesic, it's anti-anxiety, it's another anti-cancer, antidepressant, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, anti-neoplastic, antioxidant, antispasmodic. It's an antiviral, so now we've got, it's good for viruses. It's an astringent. It's cardiac, nervine. It's a neuroendocrine, sedative, a tonic, and it's good for wound healing. What do we use St. John's wort for? Anxiety. It's very good for anxiety, for asthma, blunt injuries, boils, bronchitis, burns. It calms the nerves. That's really important. But look here, it's good for cancer. Cerebral vascular calcification, chronic uterine problems, chronic fatigue syndrome, cognitive function, so it's going to help with brain function, irregular and painful menstruation. It's good for depression. It's good for depressive moods, when a person's in that depressive mood. Dermatitis, dermatosis, dissolves and removes tumors. So we saw here that it's anti-cancer. Well, it's also going to do good for dissolving and removing tumors. Dysentery, dyspeptic complaints, excellent blood and cleanser Our excellent blood cleanser and purifier. Are you seeing that again? It's a blood cleanser. See the relationship. Fatigue, gallbladder disease, gastritis. It's good for gout, increasing the flow of urine, internal bleeding, mental burnout, nervous depression, nervous unrest, peripheral and central nervous system injuries, premenstrual syndrome, reduction and control of tumor growths, both malignant and benign. Let's read that one again. Reduction and control of tumor growths, both malignant and benign. Relieves phlegm, obstruction in the chest and lungs. It's good for rheumatism, sleep quality, tonsillitis, viral infections. It's good for weight loss, worms, and wounds. Precautions. A history of photosensitivity or hypersensitivity to St. John's wort. Also a precaution is if you're taking antidepressant medication, you want to make sure that they're not doing the same thing or it will overdose you. The next one is something that's really hitting the newsstands right now. They're putting it in all kinds of things. They're putting it in food. They're putting it in health items. They're just on both sides. They're really hitting turmeric right now. You use the rhizome. Why are they using it? It's an analgesic, anti-inflammatory, anti-arthritic, anti-cancer, anti-hyperlipidemic, antimicrobial, antioxidant, anti-rheumatic, antiseptic, antithrombotic, anti-tumor. It's an astringent. It's a cardioprotective, so it's good for the heart. It's chemopreventive, liver tonic, neuroprotective. Can you see why it's so good? Acid indigestion, acne, aging, allergies, Alzheimer's disease, arterial plaque. So it's going to eat away on that arterial plaque like a Roto-Rooter. It's good for asthma, autoimmune disorder, bile production, blood disorders, and cancer. Cardiovascular conditions, helps lower cholesterol. It's good for Crohn's disease, digestive disorders, dyspepsia. It's going to help with that digestion going on. A lot of folks complain of dyspepsia or that complaint of their stomach. It's going to help with that. Eczema, gastritis, heart disease, heavy metal protection, hepatitis, herpes simplex 1, immune system, inflammatory bowel disease, and we see so much inflammatory bowel disease out there today. Irritable bowel syndrome, see a lot of that. Probably the biggest cause of that is dairy and the new wheat, the 42 chromosome wheat. Take those two out and we usually see the irritable bowel syndrome clearing up. Yes, it's true, caffeine's not good, stress is not good, a refined diet is not good, meat's not good. So we want to take away those root cause, but turmeric is really good to help heal that. It's good for jaundice, liver function. It's good for memory, nausea, neurodegenerative diseases, neurotoxicity, osteoarthritis, pain, pancreatic cancer. Now we're specifically hitting some, and pancreatic cancer is serious. Peptic ulcers, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, skin diseases, ulcerative colitis, ulcers in general, urinary infections, and vitiligo. What are the precautions? Turmeric usually does not cause significant side effects. However, some people can experience upset stomach, nausea, dizziness, or diarrhea if they take too much. So you can start slow and increase. Now, you can take just plain turmeric. You can take it in capsules. You can sprinkle it on your food. But just like the garlic, I can use garlic, or if I want to really hit something really hard, like MRSA, this isn't going to be as strong as maybe as I need. Also, garlic is very good for leaky gut syndrome. So if I want to hit something really hard, I'll extract the allicin out and take the allicin, and it takes 24 cloves of garlic to make 1 drop of allicin. It takes 2,240 cloves of garlic to make a teaspoon of allicin. Bromelain. We take pineapple, and you take the bromelain out, and to take enough bromelain, you'd have to have a lot of pineapple. So the bromelain is going to help with digestion. It's going to help with inflammation. But you wouldn't want to eat that much pineapple. Or let's say you have a UTI. Cranberries are great, but there's not enough. I remember going by the nurse's station one time, and the doc was ordering a cup of cranberry juice each meal for the UTI. And the nurse was taking the order, and the registered dietitian happened to be standing there, and she says, that's not enough. She says, they need a quart each meal. You need a lot to do what you're looking for there, doc. Well, what they have found is they can take out of that cranberry, out of that blueberry, which also is good for urinary tract infections, you take the D-mannose out, and you just give the D-mannose. So you give a teaspoon of D-mannose every 2 hours. It's amazing for wiping out UTIs. But to take that much cranberry juice, it'd take a lot of cranberry juice, plus the cranberry juice has a lot of sugar, natural sugar, and you're dealing with an infection. Well, for turmeric, the chemical in turmeric is called curcumin. And curcumin is very powerful. If you have just 1 capsule of curcumin, it takes, I've read, as much as 2,000 capsules of regular turmeric. So you can take turmeric just like this, and that's good, but if you want to really hit something hard, you can get the curcumin. Now, folks will tell you you've got to have black pepper along with it. That is not true, because I'm using a curcumin that doesn't have black pepper, and people are getting a very good results. Now, it is true that it's also good when you do take the turmeric or the curcumin, the curcumin, to have an oil with it. So you could take it like with flax oil or vitamin E oil or something like that, and it makes it work better. But I found I don't have to have the black pepper. Remember, black pepper can damage or irritate the mucosa. But turmeric is very, very good. Again, the cautions: turmeric usually does not cause significant side effects. However, some people can experience some stomach upset, nausea, dizziness, or diarrhea. That's when taken like this. But if you take the curcumin, you're taking 1 little pill that has that extract, and I don't see as much of a problem, and you're getting a powerful results where you're trying to take a lot of this to do that. Now, am I saying this is bad? Not at all. Am I saying the garlic's bad? Not at all. But if you want to do the super dose, you can take those extracts out, and that does a good job. Uva ursi. You can use the leaves of uva ursi. It's antibacterial, anticatarrhal, antimicrobial. It's an astringent, a demulcent, a diuretic. It's also a tonic. We use it for arthritis, bedwetting, bronchitis, constipation, contact dermatitis, cystitis, digestive disorders, digestive stimulant, dysentery. It's good for E. coli. It's good for edema, excessive menstruation. A lot of ladies will take uva ursi. Gonorrhea, healing of wounds, hemorrhoids, incontinence, hyperpigmentation disorders, inflammation of the kidney and bladder, inflammatory disorders of the urinary tract, invigorating and body strengthening, involuntary loss of bladder control, kidney infection, lung congestion, nephritis, obesity, prevent loss of bladder control, prostate gland weakness, so that's good for men to take. Staph, strengthens the heart muscle, swelling of the bladder and urethra, urinary infections, urinary ulcerations, venereal disease, and a weakened liver. Precaution: uva ursi is safe for most adults when taken by mouth short term for up to 1 month. So you may want to just kind of go on and off of the uva ursi. Valerian root. Valerian is a powerful herb. It's strong in smell. It's also strong in taste. Some folks don't like drinking it. You can use again, we can use these herbs in various ways. If you don't like the taste of the tea, you can use the extract, put it in capsules. Valerian is an antispasmodic, anti-ulcerogenic, anxiolytic, muscle relaxing. It's a diuretic, expectorant. It's a hypotensive, nervine, sedative. It's a tranquilizer. Helps you calm down to go to sleep. It's one of the items we use. It's good for aggression. It's a sleep aid. It's good for anxiety disorders, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. It's calming. Chronic fatigue syndrome. It's good for colic, depression. Eases insomnia. Eases menstrual cramps, epilepsy, excitability, fainting, headaches, heart palpitations. It's good for hot flashes. Hysteria. Increases the strength of the heartbeat. So a person who needs to strengthen that heartbeat, it's good. Heart palpitations, strengthening the heart. Valerian is good for both of those. Joint pain. Lowers the blood pressure. Good for menstrual cramps, migraines, mild tremors. It's a muscle relaxer. It's good for muscle spasms. So again, you can make a tea. On this one you need to make a decoction, and you can soak your fomentation in there, apply it to the area, and it can help with those muscle spasms. Nervous asthma, nervous stomach cramps, nervousness, neuralgia, paralysis, palsy, psychological stress, restlessness. It's a source of calcium and magnesium. And we're always looking for natural sources of calcium and magnesium. Stomach cramps, stress, stress management, uterine spasticity. It's also good for worms. Precautions, but valerian root is generally regarded as safe. Side effects can include headache, dizziness, or stomach problems. One can have an opposite reaction as anxiousness and restlessness. So valerian is one that you can have an opposite reaction to, so you just have to see how your body addresses valerian. And our last one, wild lettuce. Wild lettuce is another favorite of mine. You use the leaves. It's analgesic, it's an antispasmodic, antitussive, it's a nervine, it's a sedative, and it's spasmodic. It's good for anxiety, arteriosclerosis, arthritis pain, bronchitis. It calms restlessness, chapped skin, chronic pain, and that's where I mostly use the wild lettuce. Wild lettuce is really, really good because some things as we've talked about today, you can only use for a short period of time. Wild lettuce, probably one of the best biochemists that I've ever met. He started a university just south of us down in Washington State, and he's just was a brilliant man. And I asked him, I said, have you used wild lettuce? He says, Walt, I've used it my whole career. And I said, well, I'm using it for pain, and I use it long term. And here's how much I use. Any problems? He said, it's not a problem. Long-term use is not going to damage the liver. You're not going to have any contraindications with medications. He said, wild lettuce is totally safe. So I'll use it for even bone cancer pain. Very, very good. I'll take 1 cup of the herb to a quart of water, make a tea, and drink 1 cup every 2 hours. If that works well, we go every 3 hours. If that works well, go every 4 hours. Use least dosing, but it works quite well. Colic, cough, cramps, heart palpitations, increases urine flow, insomnia, lactation, laryngitis, nervous disorders, nymphomania, pain, painful menstrual periods, restlessness, spasms, whooping cough. Precautions. No health hazards or side effects are known in conjunction with the proper administration of designated therapeutic doses. You know, we've looked at a lot of different herbs today, and it's just a handful. There are so many that God has out there that we can use. And it's not just where we just make a tea or where we just grind it up and put a capsule, but we can also take this herb and we can make a tea. We can make a decoction to use for a fomentation. We can make a extract that's going to last for 12 months or 14 months to 2 years. We can get it in an extract that will last even more years, where 1 drop equals 24 drops of peppermint. We can put it in a diffuser and it can go out through the air. We can put it on us and breathe it in. God has made it so many ways that we can use these herbs to help us with health problems. Do we have a responsibility? Do we have a responsibility, if we have knowledge, to put these into place? Well, let's take a look. This is God's method. The herbs that grow for the benefit of man, and the little handful of herbs kept and steeped and used for sudden ailments have served tenfold, yes, 100-fold better purposes than all the drugs hidden under mysterious names and dealt out to the sick. So as we look at this series, as we continue on, as we look at how to make teas, how to make tinctures and decoctions, as we look at how to make poultices and fomentations, as we look at how to use extracts, I encourage you to take a look and see how God will have you use the different tools that He has given us to use in our natural toolbox. Shall we pray? Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank You so much for giving us these herbs, for caring enough for us that we can use something that won't have those terrible, awful side effects. Something that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg. Something that we don't have to worry about. Do we have a major insurance plan? Something that we don't have to worry about whether or not we have access. Lord, give us that desire to learn. Give us the knowledge of what to do, that we can take care of our families, that we can take care of our neighbors, and that we can point folks to You and give glory to You for that healing. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.